I told you that we printed a copy.
Because you're making me guilty.
On the other end today as well. I'm gonna go.
No,
to
wait,
the-
yeah.
Try and get for the.
Wondering if I can
I know
see
it's
how
three
you're
items on
floating,
the strategic plan.
there's floating houses coming along
You
here.
can go and Bowen or
Just
whatever,
one.
very literally, one's leaving,
Three of
the, moving forward
The
on the
fourth
inventory,
one,
the others the
we're
plan.
just finishing up the calendar.
But it's not under here, it's outside.
So you'll have those
Island
for the
idea.
summer then?
Well,
I just want,
She just reminded me of this now, so.
we'll start on, we have two more planned, well, we have six
Yeah.
stack houses planned, and two more just to replace
it's
the old
interesting,
house.
it's right here.
To getting rid of
The,
it.
the tourist promotion plan is too successful. They're running by tourists. It's interesting development.
So it looks like our
Well, no,
The company is
starting on
tourism is what keeps
next.
our business alive in the
It'll,
winter. But how do we deal with impacts?
4
So,
units,
should we get rolling on
2 units,
2 and 2?
I'm all
and
set.
then double stack.
A lot of time.
Really small units. That's really what
Where's
we,
the mo?
what we built so far, we keep reducing the size on. 'cause
Okay, everybody, let's get rolling.
This is a couple.
Okay. So, welcome to our first Heritage Commission meeting of 2019. And I'd like to welcome our two new members, Peter Williamson and Judy Getty. And I'm trying to recall, I was going through my records. Judy, you are member at large on the committee, and Pete,
To represent Arts Council
Arts Council.
nominated.
excellent,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
So,
So you're kind of the new Dave
with that,
Pollard.
if I can amend this list, the commission members, it's
Down,
Judy with an
sure,
I,
if you want, but
and
also
it's
I
not
think-
the Heritage Preservation Association.
Okay, so member at large.
Member at large.
Yes.
Okay, I've got an add up for member at large, yeah.
So 30 to 40 years with the Heritage Commission,
Very
it's a
large.
reasonable mistake.
And for those of you who don't know, Emma Chow is our staff liaison for the Heritage Commission. Emma is one of our planners at the municipality, and she's been involved off and on with the Heritage Commission. So welcome.
Thank you.
And everybody knows everybody?
Yes.
Okay, great. So could I call for approval of the agenda? Are there any late items, Steph? No? All good? Okay, so
No.
motion to approve. Rondi, could I have a second? Judy, all in favor? And how about the minutes from October the 11th, 2018? Are there any concerns regarding the minutes? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve? Melissa, Ron was nodding, seconded, all those in favor? Everybody okay with the minutes? If you
Well,
weren't
I
there,
wasn't
it's
there,
kind
so,
of,
yeah.
yeah, it's,
I watched the video.
hmm?
I watched the video.
You watched it? Okay. So abstentions are counted as approvals in the local government. And there are no members of the public present, so some of the tasks under elections and schedule are the standard tasks that are part of the first meeting of the year for a commission or a committee. And we have to elect our chair, our vice chair, and establish a meeting schedule for the commission. In some instances, the terms of reference for a committee or commission will state how often a committee or commission has to meet, ours do not. We have, as you would have seen from the summary of our work to date, we have met more frequently and less frequently. So we could talk a little bit about that. So item 4.1 is the election of the chair. We could do that now, or we could defer it to later in the meeting, whatever your preference is.
For till later.
Until later? Yeah. And same with vice chair and our meeting schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think with the first meetings, it's often a good idea to defer until later in the meeting, just until you get a sense of what the heck is going on for the year.
Yeah.
Alrighty, you okay with that?
Yes.
So the action items are from October the 11th, 2018, and they are on page 8 of our agenda package. And there are some things that are carrying over from fairly early in the year and involve commission members who have reached end of term or who have declined to be reappointed. So part of what we have to do here is to figure out, is this task, is this action item worth pursuing? Or is it something that we should reassign? Or is it something that we should strike because it isn't relevant given the passage of time? So from February of last year, item 1 was to provide a list of potential heritage sites, including the Islands Trust pamphlet. And in our past agenda packages, there's been some material around the Islands Trust pamphlet. And then the second item was to look for copies of the documents related to the early 2000s efforts to obtain heritage status for Lieben.
So Kathy's not on the commission anymore?
No, she reached end of appointment. She was appointed as an interim commission member to fill in a gap when Jeff Little moved off island. So no, she's not here. So there's a piece of work here, and we have to decide whether we want to pursue it or not.
There's mention in the minutes somewhere that there was a draft inventory list.
Yeah, very true. There's one that a student prepared some time ago through the Museum and Archives, and there is a second list of sites that could be part of a potential heritage registry that went forward to municipal council and was received, but was not adopted at that time.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Rob. And there's also a broader list of potential sites. The draft heritage registry that went forward to council was restricted to sites that were publicly owned.
So the ongoing from February of 2018 and the ongoing from May 24th, number 4, they include the earlier draft inventory. So that's basically it's still out there in draft form. Nothing's been adopted.
Nothing's been adopted. The last time they went forward to council would have been.
Okay. So the discussion now is
But
whether or not-
clarification though, the one draft inventory, that's different than draft register, right? Because that included private homes. So that's
Yes.
a different document than the draft register that went to council and was received but not moved on.
Yeah, what went to council was the draft register.
Yeah.
And in that summary document that I pulled together with the 12 different meetings that we had, there are references to in which meeting we discussed certain things. So if you sort of troll through, you can find that material. Alternatively, we can make it an action item going forward, where staff tracks it down with the help of Melissa.
So the discussion now is whether to continue with that work?
Pardon me?
The discussion now is whether or not to continue with that work?
Yeah, and whether to assign it to someone else, because Kathy's no longer here.
Well, I believe it's important work because once we, I think the idea was we would move to council approval ultimately of the initial sites, the more public sites on the list, and including the cottages and other public sites. And then a future phase of the register would be looking at other sites on the island, which would include private homes and other things. And so sooner or later that work's going to have to be done. And the sooner we pull together all of these things, the draft inventory and under item 4, the list of potential heritage sites, including Island Trust pamphlet if that's different, and the earlier documents, obtaining heritage sites for Lieben. But so we should be pulling at least the ones in 1 and the one in the draft inventory in 4 together as a starting point for future phases. And I don't know if we're gonna talk about those as part of the proposed for public engagement on it or not, but there will be engagement. So anyway, just to cut through quick, I think we do need to loop back on that and follow up.
Great. Okay, so if we drop that from the action items, how
Drop
about
number 1 from the top, and number 5, no,
number 4?
number 4.
And create a new action item for May the, whatever it is. And it's that we need somebody to pull together the potential inventory and the potential registry for committee review. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that would be either for the inventory research committee or for, it could be part of the work plan also. But it makes sense to me to get started on it earlier rather than later because it may take some digging.
Yeah. So,
So I have these two, I found it, so it's the inventory list, that's the inventory list? Is that correct?
yes,
That one?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's
Dated
that
April
one.
1, 2016.
And then the, the registry list.
Who owns the, can't pronounce it, that property we were just talking about? Who's the legal owner?
Of which property?
Of-
Lieben?
Lieben.
Lieben is owned by the provincial government. The provincial government.
That's the potential
So-
registry.
This is what went forward to the municipal council, and they received it, they thought it was great, they were prepared to adopt it at that point.
At that time.
So there's November 16 minutes from the commission, and then the other one was dated April the 16th.
Yeah.
But it was this April. So those are.
I can send those lists right now, though, if,
Yeah, send
To the
them, but
committee.
let's not dwell on them
Yeah.
just now. I think it's just, we've got these, when I went through I went through all the minutes, I went through all of the attachments from the 3 years or so that we've been working, and we actually have done a lot of work. It was surprising to me how much material we have produced, but it's not consolidated in a way that clearly demonstrates we've gone through the first phase of our work plan. And we essentially almost have, the piece that's missing is summarizing the findings. So we need a person with a brain who will go through and consolidate some of this material so that it can move forward to the next step. So our subcommittees, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, but our subcommittees have sort of worked a bit and then haven't worked. You know, they kind of lost momentum. So I think it may make more sense at this point to, rather than tasking a subcommittee with doing this, to task a couple of people who are going to go through it and come back to our next meeting and say, here's what we've got.
And I think rereading number 1 from February 15th, provide a list of, I don't think that is talking about an existing list. I think this was a kind of this had been intended as a research item for Kathy to scour the archives, including finding the Islands Trust pamphlet, which has stuff in it
Yeah.
for Bowen. Scour the archives using her research skills
Yeah,
and see if there's anything else that's been missed.
yeah,
And then we pull it all together, so we don't, unless Kathy's still willing to do that for us and follow up with her, that will need to be somebody who has some time and some research skills.
yeah. I think where that item came from was that we were worried we were missing something.
Yeah, yeah.
And at that point, there wasn't support for our work plan. So we were trying to do it on our own, and the best way to do that was to bring Kathy into the picture. And it may still be the best way to do it, but I think that someone on the committee needs to say, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Judy?
Can I do
That'd be Judy. Thanks, Judy.
Yeah.
so Judy's doing number 1 again, is back on the list?
It's,
1, 2, and 4?
yeah, that would be great if you're prepared to look for the Lieben.
Yeah, but I was wondering about Lieben. Should we not leave all Lieben stuff to the Arts Council since they seem to be taking it on? Is it?
I don't
would
know.
we
There was
just be
a-
duplicating?
It's going to be
Motion.
included, but it's also, it's going to be expanded, it seems to me.
I think that the Arts Council will take on the responsibility of, with us, moving forward with any recommendation that goes to the National Heritage Site.
Yeah.
But I don't see any harm in, if Judy and whoever else is working with her, I don't see any harm with checking in with Kathy to see what is there that could help inform the work of the Arts Council.
Could I just say, Judy, the context for this is that the Arts Council, which you probably already know, are applying for National Historic Status for Lieben. So they've been putting together this
I'm on the Arts
application.
Council.
Right, so you know. And I think that Kathy, it was in discussion with Dave, that she said that she remembered that there had been a previous effort to get that heritage status. So she was going to provide the information to him in order to support,
Yeah.
in order for, like, to give him context to that application. So I think that one is specific to that application.
And that was Paul and Andre Gresco, I think, plus Andrea.
Andrea Gergely, yeah. And I'm not sure where Andrea is at, so there's a little bit of
She's
digging.
given all of her files over to the Arts Council.
She has. Excellent. Okay, Judy, you're down there. Do you need a buddy?
And to Melissa's suggestion that we just give it all over to the Arts Council, I would suggest we still keep our hand in, because, you know, Dave Pollard was happy to take my advice on kind of the physical aspects, but I think the Arts Council's lens is more on the meaning culturally, the intangible heritage, and there's actually some tangible heritage on the site too. And so I think between the two of us, I think we build a full picture of it. So I think keep our order, I think.
And the material that Dave has put together is framed as coming from the Commission and from the Arts Council. So he assumes that's the way we're going forward. Okay, so Judy, do you need someone to help you with this?
Let me get in touch with Kathy, and then if she doesn't have any time or energy around it, then
Reach out.
I noticed that 3 is also a Kathy item. Contact Dave Smith.
So maybe we could have Judy as the follow-up contact
you're right.
for any
Yeah.
Kathy items, just to see. And I mean, sometimes some of these action items will just sort of spiral and go nowhere, and for good reason, and sometimes they'll spiral and go good places. So if we don't come to a landing with some of them, that's to be expected.
David's actually on island right now, visiting, so.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But I'm not up to date. Dave Pollard has missed a couple of he's been away, and so I'm not up to date in terms of what he's actually got.
For Lieben,
You know,
we'll get
so-
to that later in the agenda. All right, so we've dealt with 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 from May 24th. Melissa, how about following up with John? Does that make sense?
Yes, I followed up with him. We haven't changed it, but we need to do a review. We'll do a review of the whole thing soon as well. And the other thing, Rob, I was going to go and talk to the ladies in Museum and Archives and just mention to them that they, with the work that they do with the students this year, they can also put it on that website. They can add trails
Sorry, fill me in
for the Heritage Trail.
Oh, okay,
So
gotcha.
if they want to add points to the Heritage Trail, we can
Okay.
do that. It's very
All right.
easy to do. It's just a WordPress site.
Okay.
So that's,
Do you have anything more to say about the Heritage Trail?
the only thing is that we got an honourable mention from BC Heritage.
Thanks. What does that mean?
It means we didn't get a prize.
But,
Yeah.
Peter, do you recall what this was?
Item 2?
2.
Item 2?
Yeah, yeah, the National Historic Site application has different sections to it.
Mhm.
I'm good at writing site descriptions, and so I'd offer to do that. I have not yet done that. It might be good to just take it off the list if Lieben seriously comes around to finalizing something and I can contribute that section, I will. But it's a piece of work that, you know.
Okay. So that's a to continue, to be continued. 2 and 4 we dealt with. 5, I imagine was done. Rob?
Yeah, that's no problem. Send it blurb.
It's not this June 24th.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Melissa, what about 6?
Sorry, Rob is, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have
5 is not happening?
It's done.
Yeah.
That's from what?
Oh, yeah,
About
sorry.
a year ago.
Okay.
6.
Yeah, almost, yeah. I haven't done that, but I do want to do it.
Okay, so keep on the list.
Yeah.
So I think there's a 100-year anniversary of the Union steamships coming up really soon. So that, and the Maritime Museum is going to take a leading role in setting that up. And they wanted very much to have liaison in terms of the resort.
Who's
So,
the person that would liaise at the?
is Andrew still on the?
Andrew is, he's.
Yeah,
on
he's,
the
and I
house.
was just there. I just reviewed all their Union steamship bonds, and they had, I'm going over there in the next week or two, but there's a whole stack of undocumented photos of the Union steamship estates, strictly all Bowen Island stuff. So we're gonna be getting that for our archives. And it's been sitting there for decades.
I was
Undocumented.
very, very good friends with the, was a former student, I think, of, what's his name, the other?
There's
archive board
Duncan is
members
the
and-
curator, and then Lee
Yeah.
is the archivist.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just happens, I didn't even, when I saw this with Andrew, I didn't even realize that because I've been over there, so.
So what are the plans then for the museum, the Maritime Museum? Are they doing an exhibition or?
Yeah, they want to work together with us. There's Duncan offered to, he would like to do it with the museum anyways. He said he wanted to do an exhibit, create an exhibit together so that we can share the resources.
So would there be a version of it on Bowen as well as a version?
Yes, yeah. And maybe not even at the same time, but if we help create it together, that we can share some of the artifacts, and which was, yeah, so this it hasn't gone too much further than that, but it's so funny because it's I didn't realize this is already going on, so.
So it may be that Andrew has been working on that
It's possible.
the other way around,
Yeah.
because I did speak to him about it briefly, and we said that we would meet, but we never
Yeah.
Will
actually
they use
did.
the old heritage cabin that's been built for display?
For
This annual party that they're gonna have, or this showcase of
we haven't got any of the details yet, but if you've got some suggestions, that's, yeah, he just reached out. This is only about 2 weeks ago. He sent me an email and we talked on the phone, but he says, hey, I'd really be interested sometime in the near future, but I want to do an exhibit on the Union steamship. And when you were here, you're all excited about everything you're finding here. So he says, would you like to do a joint venture? So I said, would love to.
Great.
So I wanted him to, I put him in touch with Inez, but nothing's further's gone than that, so that's where we're at, so.
Well, it sounds as though moving forward is in the hands of the museum and archives, so we
Yeah,
just
it's already there, sorry about
acknowledge-
it, I didn't,
Yeah.
No, it's fine. The other thing, part piece of context to that, is in the long term, Metro seemed very interested in the idea of having some kind of steamship, you know, as part of whatever that vision is down there.
and in what way, you just,
Well, pardon, you said? A plinth. No, I'd suggested having, that one of the cottages could be a steamship exhibition, and they were quite interested in that. I mean, I don't know about the
basically it
logistics.
already is, but it isn't being used, I guess, enough. The one that is rebuilt is the old.
Yeah, the cottage museum, is that to represent what a Union Steamship cottage would have been like, or?
Yeah.
Yes, but this was more about the steamship company and what they did and all that kind of the materials associated with that, rather than the cottage is like a period cottage, so it is
Yeah,
itself.
I remember a discussion, wasn't there even some, like, wouldn't it be great if it was right on the dock, so people that came
Yeah.
off the boat could come to look at it?
Yeah.
We could use, like, there could be some nice materials from those, from the archives that they have, I think.
I think that's a good idea. Do you have any sense of when an exhibition might be launched?
I could find out for you,
Okay.
real quick.
Okay, so could that
So
be
they
an
just put,
action item?
Rob, phone Duncan
Yeah,
and find out.
yeah. In part because what's going on right now with Metro is they're doing their detailed design for the orchard area. And I'm not altogether confident how much they are, the people who are doing the detailed design work, I'm not confident of how much detail they are aware of when it comes to the maritime heritage of the area. So if there were, people always get the picture more when there's a picture involved and when there's an exhibition. So if there were to be something coming up this summer,
Yeah.
it would be really timely to influence the direction of the detail design.
Okay, if you're thinking there'd be an exhibit this summer, not a
No.
chance. That's,
Okay.
those things are
Good to know.
planned in a year in advance kind of
Okay.
thing, so.
Okay.
It's more likely next year, is what I'm thinking.
Okay. But the fawns are coming to Bowen?
Yeah,
in
it's,
the interim?
I've already started, I just have to make an appointment to go back again and do it. I was hoping to get some other volunteers to help me.
So
Does
this is a
anyone-
permanent,
What's
this is a
that?
permanent transfer?
Yeah, well, there's some we're gonna get copies of, and then there's others that's a permanent, because they were undocumented, it belongs on Bowen versus there.
I'll
So,
come with you, Rob.
what's that?
I'll come with you.
Sure, absolutely, that'd be great. And, yeah, I have to pick up, I got the floor plans, large color photograph of the floor plans of the Lady Alexandra, which we didn't.
It's beautiful.
It's unbelievable.
That's
Wow.
great.
What's the action you're gonna go to? Melissa and Rob are going to, I'm going to have someone reaching out to Metro Vancouver regarding the research.
No, not Metro, to the Vancouver Museum.
Maritime Museum,
Yeah, Maritime Museum.
Go to the Vancouver Maritime Museum.
and pick up the fonts.
Pick up, yeah, well, you have to get to do the work, that's the thing, I have to document everything as well,
So
so.
it's kind of a day's work in the museum.
Yeah, pretty much. Beware what you ask for,
Yes.
Melissa.
With a D. Yeah. So Steph, what do you have done for
Go to the Vancouver Maritime Museum and pick up and document the fonts.
the Union Steamship?
Yeah,
Is that
just, yeah,
accurate?
yeah.
What we're doing?
We're gonna get copies of some photographs, and then some are gonna be a permanent transfer. But they're undocumented, I have to document them first.
They're gonna pick up the fonts.
Does, good stuff.
The films, I think they're pronounced properly.
Okay, reaching out to the Lieben relatives. Do you think, could that go into your bucket?
I've got the contacts,
Oh, you
I'm
do?
the one that gave the handoff to Ellie, and I don't think it's been
Do you
done.
want to do it then?
Yeah, well, I know, I'm not looking for things to do, I mean, but I do have, I was in contact with the Lieben relatives,
Yeah,
and it was decided to give it to Ally, and then it never went any further.
Yeah.
And of course, she's left, so.
yeah. Okay, so the point of this was to let them know that there was the potential of moving forward with the National Historic Site and what their thoughts were on
Yeah.
that. So you okay with doing that? And if not, say so.
Yeah, I guess, I'd rather pass it on to somebody else.
Okay?
But I think Judy's got way too much already. I
Yeah.
think she's got 3 or 4 items already, so.
So do we know if Ally did anything?
No.
No, she didn't. I know for a fact she didn't, so.
Okay.
So it's, I've got the contacts.
Is
Who
that
was
something
it?
that she might consider doing, whether she's on the commission or not?
She might, yeah, but she needs to be given direction.
Well, she's got the information from me, so she's got all the contact information, she could just follow it up.
Yeah, but it's the reporting back, it's the,
Well, she can report back to me if she wants, if she
Okay,
wants.
Rob.
Okay, I don't mind that.
yeah, Rob plus
So
that.
Rob too reached out to Ally.
Yeah.
Okay. All up for it.
Okay, so we've gotten through May 24th. All right, October the 11th, Flynn Road, this is mine. The appropriate contact at the provincial level is Richard Lindsay, and he has an assistant who has bounced back and forth by email. So Richard Lindsay is also at the HSMBC conference, so I will, Melissa and I will speak with Richard Lindsay regarding this. And the goal is to get a specific procedure for getting provincial feedback on the Lieben application. And then Dave, item 2, liaise with BIAC regarding the beginning to draft a letter. Dave has done that. He drafted a letter in December, and he circulated it to Jackie Massey, to me, a couple of other people. So it is in the works.
I've got a print copy of stuff.
Yeah.
What's that for the record? That was stuff.
It
What Dave
might be-
circulated.
It might be worth including. Yeah.
Can I revise?
So this is where Dave is at, and where we need some advice at the Heritage Conference from Don Luxton as to whether it's wise or not. Do you want to say a little bit more about your email?
Sure. So, I mean, I don't know there's much more to say because I'm not an expert on National Historic Site applications, but I've known Don for years. Don's probably the senior heritage consultant in BC, if not in all of Canada, and he's written national or contributed to National Historic Site applications, and I had mentioned to him they were looking at applying for status for Lieben, and he said quite strongly, he said, it relates to site integrity, and integrity not meaning truthfulness or whatever it means. It's an expression of condition of the site, and will be and that sense of integrity will be different whether you're talking about an intact heritage building or a site like Lieben, which is more of an archaeological and natural landscape site. So I don't know where it lands in terms of Lieben, but he said if the site does not meet the panel's criteria for site integrity, it'll be turned down. And he said what's really important is that it's not like you can go and try again. Once they've turned it down once, it's very, very difficult to get a favorable review of it again. Like they'll determine it's a dog, and it's a dog forever kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's the sense I got from Don. So, and it is a bit of a catch-22 because one of the reasons we'd like to have National Historic Site recognition is that will help secure funding to help quote develop the site as a place where people could be safely and whether it's for interpretive or whether it's for an arts retreat or whatever, it needs to get to that level, and so we may have work to do.
Oh, it sounds like we will.
And Dawn would also Dawn would be able to explain much better than I can to more Maureen and Melissa at the Heritage Conference what that might mean, but he may have never been to the site. We could send him the material, but you really don't get a sense of the site unless you're actually there and slipping down the trails and hanging onto the rope in one section. And I have a feeling he's going to say these are the things that would need to be done before we're ready to. And so we all want to be successful. We all want to get going, and it's a project we thought, oh, this is something we could do. But let's not fail before we're even out of the gate. Let's find out what would need to be done, and then get a sense of what it would cost in terms of
Oh, God.
of
yeah.
funding just to get it there. So, and you know, that might be seed money from council, I don't know, but we don't know anything. So I wouldn't recommend that we go forward on Lieben until we know those, on the application, if we know
Yeah.
some.
Do you have any sense of what the criteria are that they use?
No, I don't. That's why I'm thinking you should talk to Dawn, and then Dawn should probably have a look at the site and say, you know, maybe we bring them over and buy them dinner or something like that. I don't know, but just give them a walk around.
Is there guidelines for it? I mean, do you need a foundation or an
Yeah.
or something?
There probably are, and again, I'm not the guy to be asking those questions.
But you did bring up some valid points of things we should be considering, and,
That's right.
and you know what, those are good sober thoughts, because it's gonna take a lot of work if that's what we have to do.
Right.
I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I just.
No, it's just the fools rush in thing, right?
Yeah.
So we just want to make sure we're ready.
And it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense too, it's all logical, so it's just like, yeah, it has to be safe. And,
Safe and you know, and probably in terms of what, knowledge of what our purposes are for it, and then what's needed to be in place to kind of be well on our way to achieving those purposes. Yeah.
So, for Melissa and me, the things that we need to check with him are, what are the criteria for a National Historic Site from his perspective? I mean, we can all read the paperwork.
In terms of
but-
integrity,
Yeah,
site
in terms of
integrity.
integrity. What are the other things that Melissa and I, if we manage to speak with him, what are the other things we should be asking him
About Lieben or about the Register General?
about Lieben specifically?
About Lieben specifically.
I would think that if there's printed guidelines anywhere, criteria, that we figure out exactly what the references are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are.
Yeah, if there's detailed intel that we just have I've just saved a pamphlet on my computer, that's all I could find. And we have a sample from the Chinatown application that Vancouver did, but we don't have any intel and you know, again, maybe it's something that Dawn could help us with, but at least if he could tell us where to find the information. Maybe it's maybe it's a site, maybe there's links, but yeah.
So I would imagine that if the feds pay for a sign to go up saying that it's a National Historic Site, then there has to be basic safety concerns
Yeah,
and some access. They wouldn't put a sign up.
yeah.
And if they don't care about a sign and anybody knowing about it, it's just listed someplace on the registry. It's still something that I think tourists and people that are looking for, to check off their bird list
Yeah.
kind of thing of all the historic sites, then it's still basically gonna have to have some sort of signage, some sort of stairs or rope or,
And-
use at your own risk, and
And
nobody's gonna want the,
in my mind, it's just a vision that popped up, is that if there's probably gonna have to be some kind of bump out or something where people can park safely.
That's what I was thinking.
You
I
know,
was thinking, Emma,
and-
that there would need to be parking of
There'd
some
be
sort.
parking, and
This is
probably
what
as part of
this-
that parking, the sign with the National Historic sign would be, you know what those sites look like, they have like stone walls and the actual monument, and then there's parking, and it's all safe, you pull in and pull out, and that's a cost of money there, just to widen the road there
Yeah.
to do that, so, you know.
Well, I did a lot of thinking about who would care about Lieben. So who would care about Lieben? UBC would care about Lieben. I mean, they actually, it was a large part of UBC's history. They were looking for people who might be supportive of the place becoming a National Historic Site. Booksellers in Canada, I mean, the list that is on Dave's summary there are some of the most important writers in Canada listed there.
So the literary community
The
across
literary
Canada
community.
would be interested.
Yeah, BC Book World, the publication that Alan Twig does. So they're sort of racking through who would care, if this actually happened. And I think that would be a really good exercise for us to go through, as part of it, rather than just sort of assuming that everybody gets that it's important.
And they could be listed as probably as some kind of list of references or supporters
Yeah.
on the application, so
Yeah.
here's who cares.
Yeah, yeah. Canadian literature,
Yeah.
journal out of UBC.
Yeah.
Is it even on any of the Bowen maps?
I
No,
don't think so.
almost deliberately so.
Yeah, it's too dodgy.
Well, yeah, exactly. Then the other thing too you brought up, I'm not saying that, you know, it becomes a bit daunting when you start thinking about the accessing and everything else, and safe passage all the way down through the property is what remains there as well. Remember that you were saying that it could be part of the criteria where there can be designated a National Historic Site. Is that what's left?
Uh-huh.
Does it mean anything, you know?
You know, I think it does, but it might also
No,
mean
but
that you know, like the foundations of the house, if you're not careful, you can fall. Yeah, they're probably, in terms of integrity, probably one of the things is there needs to be some kind of like a chain or kind of fence thing or something around it so people don't fall in, or signage, warning signage. That's the kind of thing probably that needs to be done before it's ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as, you know, if we do manage to move forward with the development of our heritage strategic plan, we also have to assess the degree of community support, you know, for going forward with something like this. It may be that it's a strong priority or it's not at all a priority on the island.
Council will want to know in terms of how much money it might want to,
If
if
it's on-
anything.
Yeah, I mean, if it ends up being on council's books,
Yeah.
because then it ends up being on the community's books. But, I mean, one of the things we know from the research that's been done is that it doesn't require a council or a provincial approval to move forward.
There's no real reason why council should have to pay for anything there, because it's provincial land.
Yeah, I guess the challenge will be where will the money come from to get to the site, to the point of integrity,
Yeah.
get us around that catch-22, as we probably can't get grant funding if we don't have the National Historic Site status. So that might take some creative thinking around funding.
So to come back to my question, which was, what else do we want to make sure we're asking John Luxton when we corner him at the conference this weekend? Is there anything else specific that we should be doing?
Well, I think we need to have a sense of what the National Commission, or the people that are making the decision, are expecting. So if it gets designated, then does that open it up, or does it just
In
protect?
terms of use,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
are they
a
looking
good
for
point.
tourist attractions, or are they looking for, you know, protection of heritage sites?
Yeah, because often a government will decide to recognize something, but then it's recognized as something that should be left alone and no public access.
I guess what else should we be thinking about? Like, we should ask Dawn, what else should we be thinking about?
Yeah.
And also, does he have any experience working with the provincial, are there any other provincial sites that they've had to work with the provincial government on? And does he have some advice there for us as well?
Yeah, good.
And anything else? By the way, I gave him the heads up that you two were going to be talking to him at the conference, so he's aware that you might be approaching him.
Great. Okay.
Because I saw him just last night. I don't know.
Great. Rob?
No, I was just curious for your last comment. You're saying, well, you know, they might want to designate it a National Heritage Site, but not have it accessible to the public. I'm thinking, well, what's the point? And if it's a heritage site, it's about education and let people know it's there. I mean, you'd have to be accessible. What's the point?
Yeah, there's either a public education function or a retreat function or
There's got to be something.
interpretation.
I can't imagine the criteria is to say, okay, we've protected it and leave it as is. And what's
Not
Go back.
necessarily, I mean, it's also a question of, like, it belongs to the province, but the province doesn't, as far as we can tell, doesn't even realise that it has any historic value. So it lets everybody know that the place has this historic value. Now that might not make any difference in terms of what happens to the site, but that memory is then, you know, literally registered for people to think about. And that, you know, there are lots of sites across the world. Like if I think about England, it's like the place where there was the Battle of Hastings, but it doesn't have any impact on what happens where that battle was. There's still whatever houses, sheep, or whatever there is there. It's but the fact of the history is still,
Is recognized,
it's
but,
important,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be a thing.
Oh, to go back to my original question, why is the provincial government owning it, or how did they get it?
It was deeded to them by the family. It was gifted to them.
In their
And
will.
what do they want to do with it? Is that?
Well, that's, the family, I know firsthand, wanted it to be designated a historic site.
In
That's-
perpetuity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
in
idea.
line with what the family would want to do. Just a sort of parallel thing with the park system, the regional park system. They have some areas that are recognized as regional parks, but they are designated as no public access because the importance is preserving the ecological diversity of that site. And to have public access would damage that. And that there's a great big park that's coming on stream where there's a lot of discussion right now about whether to open it up for the public or whether the best thing in the long term would be just to leave it as is. So it ends up being a lot of discussion.
Just a reminder too, we should fish it out. You have the letter from the family as well to
Yeah.
support this, so just make note that we've got it in
Would
hand.
it be better if it was part
Thank you.
or somehow the provincial government could at least give the right for our local parks board, Bowen Island Parks Board, to manage it or control it or own it? I have no idea if that would be good or bad.
Yeah, I don't know either, but it's an interesting idea.
Or Metro Parks.
I don't think Metro is interested in
Different
requiring
jurisdictions.
A separate little
discrete.
site.
Yeah, it would be, I think it would be a hassle for them, but
How many acres is it?
how many acres is it, do you remember?
Many, 1, 2,
No, it's 10.
is it?
It's 10, I read that this
10? Wow.
afternoon, yeah.
So just one thought,
What's
Is-
called the assignment.
and I have mixed feelings on this, but on the one hand, there is a value to just leaving it fallow in a sense and not disturbing it because as soon as you disturb something, you're changing it. On the other hand, the more it's developed, and I say that word with caution, with proper trails or whatever, and it's cleaned up and the junk is taken out and all that kind of stuff, the more we do with it, the more we give it a status. One can say, well, you know, money's been put into it, volunteers have done work, people visited, it's a valued site. So you've got the two ends of the spectrum. One, you do work on it and it becomes something, but changes it. And the other thing is you leave it, but it's more vulnerable because nothing has been done to it. And maybe the balance is somewhere in the middle, but I just throw that out for
Yeah,
nothing thinking, right?
yeah.
I feel
I just looked at the statement of significance, it is 10 acres.
Oh, okay.
Judy?
The other point that, and we're gonna have to flesh this out a whole lot more in detail later, but the other point that might be remembered is that in their wills, they wanted it to be reverting to the ungulates. So they wanted it to go back to a nature reserve.
Excuse me, can you say that in their will, they wanted to be?
Yeah, Muriel and Ida Nielsen, when they set it aside as they gifted it to the province as, I believe, an ecological area and for the protection of the deer. And then the Crown has subsequently, and they originally had it in a different status, and then it's eventually moved into Crown land. So it has no protections. And I can't remember how that all happened, but in terms of what ultimately happens to it, we might have to keep that in mind as well.
It seems like the Crown is reneged on the terms of the will.
Well, that's
Yeah.
another discussion at some point.
I'm not sure, I mean, I'm looking at the statement of significance from the draft heritage registry. Property was deeded to the province in 77 for use as a nature reserve in perpetuity, despite efforts by the Conservancy and Islands Trust to have the Crown place a conservation covenant on the land to honor the Nielsen's wishes. The land remains unprotected. So I guess it comes down to a difference between being unprotected and being just a nature preserve in perpetuity. Like, what is the difference? Is benign neglect the same as
Well, didn't
their
somebody,
goals.
wasn't somebody saying that the province was looking into disposing of it? And if they don't have an awareness of its significance, and it's just been kind of dropped into their basket of land, then you can imagine somebody would be like, why on earth do we have 10 acres of waterfront land here on Bowen Island with nothing around it?
Let's log it.
Well, let's sell it.
Or
and,
sell it, yeah.
And how much would they get for that for residential?
Huge.
So I think
Yeah.
that's one of the concerns, is ensuring that the province understands what they have. And I think the Arts Council, correct me if I'm wrong, want it registered because they want they want to be able to use it occasionally.
It's probably worth pointing, just on the nature preserve aspect of the wish of Einar and Muriel, is, arguably Crippen Park is preserved as a nature preserve. It's managed by Metro. Also Pacific Spirit at UBC, and all of those have the public entering. They have proper trails. They're safe. Generally, they've got signage. So a nature preserve doesn't necessarily mean just left totally undeveloped. And there's a lot of options within that idea of preserve. And we know that deer are prevalent in Crippen Park and a lot of other places. So I guess I would just hope that we keep that lens of it doesn't necessarily mean untouched.
Yeah. Well, we've got the Art Renaissance Nature Preserve now as part of Crippen Park, and that has a trail network that's being developed and is almost complete through the preserve. And I guess
Even Fairy Fen has a trail
yeah,
leading
that's
to
what I was
it.
thinking. Honest Rouse.
Yeah,
Okay, so nature preserve does not equal.
no trails or anything.
So the question for Lexington is, integrity means what?
Yeah.
Development, or
Yeah, that's the key, really.
cleaning it up, or leaving it alone?
Okay.
At least a couple tables. Taking up that.
No, it's good. I think Melissa brought up a good point. The fact is, if you do nothing, it's a temptation, because it's valuable land.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's it'll get developed, so you gotta have a few plaques or something.
Well, even if it's a National Historic Site, then the province that'll go into a different pile. It won't go into the to be sold pile.
True, but like I said, the criteria of getting it a National Historic Site is gonna be, I think, difficult, but we're pursuing.
Yeah. I think we have to be really clear about why this matters, because we're not going to convince anybody unless we're really clear on that. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. If anything else comes to mind that Melissa and I should be focusing on in this conversation, just shoot us an email.
Are you going to be asked on if you'd be interested in coming over and be treated at dinner or something and have a look at the site?
Yeah.
So you're saying that Don was Luxon and
Luxton.
Luxton.
And then is there Richard Lindsay in here as well?
Maybe it's that Maureen and Melissa will attempt to connect with Don Luxton and Richard Lindsay at the Heritage BC conference and report back to the committee.
Don Austin was the consultant that was hired in the very first early stages that did, I think he, and with Lemon, what's this, John Lemon or Robert Lemon?
Robert Lemon.
They did the first workshop that we had at the old general
Yeah.
store, but identifying all of the heritage sites.
And I think he might have, if I'm remembering correctly, he might have done the assessments of seaside cottages.
Yeah.
Okay, write number 3, write an intro to provide with the 2019 Heritage Commission work plan to create some context. We did that, and essentially the inventory, the summary of all of our meetings does that. And then minor updates to the 2018 work plan. With Emma, I had that conversation. So those are our action items.
Sorry, just the next steps regarding this draft letter then, is there a specific, that was just, you're just waiting?
For Dave,
Yeah. This is,
there are no next steps at this point.
you just keep it.
Yeah, we just keep it, and we'll see how the conversation goes, and then we'll take it. Okay, took a long time. So the Heritage Commission work to date, pages 9 to 11 of your agenda package, is a summary of all of the meetings that we've had, and it's in part for Peter and Judy as an introduction, but also for the rest of us as a reminder of what we've done over the last couple of years. And all of the agendas and the minutes are posted online, so if something piques your interest, you can go and dig in and get a sense of what was covered there. I mean, there are things that are mentioned, like Josephine Riley's early history of Grafton Lake. It's a really, really interesting read, but it hasn't gotten any further distribution, but it's embedded in our minutes and agendas. And it also gives you a sense of what the motions were that the committee made and went to council and how they were responded to, as well as sort of some key points with Metro Vancouver regarding, specifically the heritage cottages. And in terms of the rhythm of this thing, the point I wanted to get across in pulling this together was that at various points we have worked towards a work plan, and we have come up with some recommendations for council, and they haven't proceeded beyond receipt. And we've done it once, we've done it twice. The third time around, I flipped the process in terms of getting council support. So we did a good job on work plan, resolution, so on, asking for funding so that we could have some staff time and some funding for an external consultant to do some of the stuff that we don't have the expertise to do. And first time didn't work, second time didn't work, so the third time I thought, forget it, flip it, get it onto the strategic plan, and then make the ask for the work plan and the budget. So that's where we're at right now. We have, and we're on the strategic plan for 2019, and the language is quite vague. It says engage the community in the development of our heritage strategic plan, but it's there. And that's more than we've gotten in the last couple of island plans. So we have, council has next week, I think it's next week, we have a progress workshop on where we're at with various priorities, and also looking at some of the other sort of sub-priorities, of which ours is one, and figuring out how those can be funded to move forward. So the first two times didn't work, so I figured flip it and see if it works this time around. And I've talked with the manager of planning and development, and it really comes down to staff time. We lost our most recent planner. She went back to the Agricultural Land Commission, and we're hoping to hire a new planner. The manager feels that the best way to do this work is to do it in-house rather than contracting the bulk of it out, which is one of the two options, in part because he wants to develop in-house expertise on heritage planning, and contracting it all out, we're not going to have an opportunity to do that. So that's sort of the backstory on the review of the work to date. And there really are some little hidden gems in here. I spent a day at Cove Commons just going through all of the minutes, all of the agendas, and thought, my goodness, in the middle of all of this, we actually did some really good work. We did. Yeah, yes. So item 6.2 is the proposed work plan for 2019, and it has an accompanying
Which page are you?
recommendation. This is just in the agenda.
Oh, 6.
Yeah, item 6.2. The work plan is included. It's a revised version of what continuing members of the commission have seen before. The key differences are that rather than 6 months, it's extended to 12 months because Emma's up to her eyeballs and doing short-term rental consultation. This could potentially fit in with her schedule. The document itself is Emma's with some tweaks. I don't know, Emma, if there's anything that you wanted to speak to or add to this at this point? No? So what is being recommended is that the option 1, which is, this is page 15 of your agenda package, where the majority of the work is done in-house, but there are chunks of funding allocated to an external consultant such as Don Watson. And there's a flow in terms of the work beginning in June of this year.
It would be great if the external consultant could at least prime staff on key things to think about and
Yeah.
do as they, in a sense, train staff
Yeah.
to do what they would be doing, and also perhaps assist with some of the research or the preparation and finalization of register type documents as well.
Yeah.
So they're professional in the end, but yeah.
Yeah, well, we've got our statements of significance for all of the public buildings that we wanted to recommend for heritage registry. So having somebody go over that who has expertise and can say, you missed this. This is
Edit it
good,"
this way, or
Yeah, would be great. And there is, again, on page 15, phase 1. We attempted last year to do phase 1. And we do have a draft heritage register. We have done an inventory of potential sites. We have done a review of policies and legislation, although it's not consolidated in a way that's easily accessed. We have done some review of some of the initiatives that are around that. Where we haven't done the work yet is really summarizing the findings in a way that somebody external to this committee can grasp, and where we've got the foundation for the second phase, which is where the really heavy staff time comes into play. The foundational work that Emma would need to start thinking about public engagement around this. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. I just wanted to sort of lead into where things were at with the work program.
So the phase 2 engage, this would be October, November, December of 2019?
Yeah, and I mean, it could potentially come forward earlier if, as a commission, we were able to pull together more of the phase 1 material. Because as I said, we have kind of done a lot of it already. It's just, I don't feel as though it's quite there to be handed off, and it hasn't been vetted by an external consultant, who says, yes, you're good to go with
Right.
your draft registry. So the resolution is in the agenda package, and it says, Heritage Commission recommended council that the work plan and budget, option 1, mostly in-house, dated May 1, be approved to enable progress on Island Plan strategic priority with $7,000 allocated from the 2019 Strategic Priority Fund for consulting fees and public engagement costs. So the project, the 19-month project, would actually straddle 2019, 2020, and there probably wouldn't be much more than $7,000 in actual cash required to move this through the 12-month period if we have a commitment of the in-kind contribution from BIM staff and from us.
And so phase 3 plan that's 2020, right? The orange, yeah.
I wonder if, the first thing to do would be to have a meeting with the consultant and bring forward the materials, the draft registry. Who's going to bring a list of potential sites, because that's beyond the registry, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have their own pocket policies and legislation summary.
I'm sure they do.
Well, the first step is to get the budget.
Yeah, so what we have to do as a commission is we have to consider whether we want to support this recommendation. And if it's supported, then I would take it to, informally, take it to the strategic priorities and progress workshop that's coming up and see where that goes. But regardless of where it goes at that meeting, if we were to approve the recommendation, it would go on the next council agenda, and council would have to consider it.
As long as it's on the next agenda.
Yeah, an upcoming council agenda. Yeah. Thank you.
So when I'm looking at these two different, option A and B, in-house and more consultant work, the hours suggested for the commission in terms of phase 2, those are quite different, between 90, 96 and 147. I don't have any difficulty with it, but I'm wondering why and how that there are differences. 35 hours for public project launch as opposed to 21 as opposed to 14, etc. So,
Yeah, I'm not following you, Judy. Where are you?
Do you want to use the little flasher up here for people? That's, we'll get some techie here. Do that.
Okay, so
Zoom
we
in a
are
bit?
mostly in-house. How do I do? Just press the
So green
little
dude.
one there?
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
So mostly in-house here has the hours suggested for this commission. And
I can't even
the
read
hours
that.
Here,
It's on your
Oh.
paper.
so this is
here.
page something or other,
It's 15
15,
Okay.
of 19.
okay? And then the hours there are different. So the 147 as opposed to the 90, whatever that is, 94?
So you're wondering why it's half as much again?
So, can we as a commission, however that breaks down, commit to, I think, the 147? Like, is that, and that's over 1 year or 2 years?
2 years. I'm sorry, 1 year.
So that's one question I had. In terms of the consultant time and the differences, that's fairly straightforward. I think the in-house time for staff, so the BIM support, those numbers are roughly divided between staff and consultant here. They add up pretty close. But it's more expensive because we're paying the consultant to do a lot of the work here at 175 an hour. That's why the difference in price. is a
Yeah.
bit-
If I'm reading this correctly, and maybe Anna, you could correct me if I'm wrong, there's, in option B, there's work shifted from the in-house allocation. So if you look here, what is it? 35 hours here.
Sorry.
Versus 84. So there's the difference. If you look at those four things.
Yeah, I think if you just look at the total hours for phase 2, between option A and option B, there is 28 more hours in option B total, and mostly that is extra commission time.
So why do we have
I think
more commission time under
so
the
this is
consultant
really,
than under in-house? That seems like it would be the opposite way around.
why is there more hours under consulting?
Under more consultant, the commission is working 147 hours in phase 2, whereas only 98 hours under mostly in-house.
Yeah, so
That's
this is really
counterintuitive.
testing my memory because this was done
A while ago.
2016.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty certain that I allocated more hours under the commission for option B because the time is spread over multiple people and it's just loss of efficiency. So for staff to take on like in-house tasks, especially for engagement, I mean, it would be me. I would do all that work. If we were to divide it up amongst like half a dozen people, you know, I'm rounding the time up to an hour per person. That's still going to be more than 2 hours of my time if it was 1 hour times 6 people. So just project management, budgeting.
That makes sense to me. I mean, and in terms of the impact on us as a commission, it's better for us to go with option 1 or A. I guess it's
Less
option
project
A.
management.
Yeah, yeah. There's just more coordination from somebody who is not dealing with people management. So it's actually option A should be in the recommendation, rather than option 1.
Yeah, generally, I would say in-house there's more efficiencies. It's just staff is stretched pretty thin right now.
So I guess for us, the question is whether we want to support the recommendation going forward to council. And I would support it. It gives me not only the statement in the island plan that we want to move forward with developing a heritage strategic plan, but it gives me the basis to make an argument for X number of dollars needs to be allocated to this project.
If I can make a suggestion, I think the numbers for the involvement of the Heritage Commission should be the same, A and B, and that the council is, there's not that much difference in the amounts. If they're actually going to budget for 12,000 and prefer that over 16,000, so be it. You know, whichever they decide, we'll try to make the most of it. But I think that it's difficult to explain what the differences are between A and B for the work of the commission. So I would suggest just using the higher numbers for both. And, you know, the expectation is that the commission is going to be supporting staff and trying to do as much work as we can and, you know, helping council in terms of working through what the recommendations are. But there's no obvious and easy to explain explanation for why there are differences. It's easy if there's a consultant involved, there'd be less staff time and there'd be more expense in terms of the actual billable hours, but
So I think
that may be the only difference I would suggest.
I can speak to the difference. I think it was summarized very briefly in the intro of the section. Bulk of the costs go to public engagement and the heritage consultant, obviously. Public engagement consultants are usually quite expensive for the work that they do, and from my experience, doing it in-house has always produced more effective results. Just because your staff, and I know this
And you know
bias,
the locals.
that's me, I've
Yeah.
worked with the community, you know, for some time, so I'm familiar with what works and what doesn't work and understanding the feedback that we get. Whereas hiring a consultant will cost much more, and I don't, from my experience, I don't think they're able to engage as effectively. But that is the main reason for difference in cost. I would say the cost of the heritage consultant is similar in both plans. We don't have the heritage expertise in-house. So in both option A and B, the consultant for heritage the cost for a heritage consultant is the same. The main difference is the public engagement.
I think that some of the commission members will end up spending a lot more time under the mostly in-house option than the more consultant option. And I'm not saying that I would oppose option A, but my feeling is some of us spent a lot of time in terms of research. I mean, we couldn't have done it without Jack and all his research skills and the time he put into it. I couldn't have done it. I don't have the time. And even the part that I did, which is the writing part and some of the site visits and stuff like that, it was a huge amount of time. And I'm going to be going to a phase in my work where I can be very, very busy and not have any of that kind of time. So, to expect that a lot of the research, additional research on other sites and stuff that would be done by the commission rather than, because I know heritage consultants have very good research abilities and, ability to find things and write things up. If we're going to be doing all of that as volunteers, we need to know that we're going to need to find the people that are going to have the time, the research skills, and the writing, and the heritage writing skills to do that, because I'm not guaranteeing that I'm going to be able to do it. So.
Can I just go back to the numbers? Can you move this up again? Because I think I can explain the difference really simply if council actually asks. This number and this number and this number and this number are key differences. And there's roughly 50 odd between the option A and option B, 50 hours that are in play. So what's going on here is our time commitment is less, and that's kind of what we're looking for. We want less commitment from the Heritage Commission, being realistic about what we can do. Whereas down here, we've got significantly more commitment from the Heritage Commission, but there's the difference is roughly comparable. This particular proposal, I think, is more workable for us, and where the weight ends up lying is in-house.
And I think I can emphasize that, again, it's the public engagement. If you were to consult that to someone external, they're not familiar with the community, that's where the commission needs to spend a lot of time, is to acquaint the consultant with the needs of the community.
Yeah.
So that's a big reason for the...
Well, they would attend one of our commission meetings and we'd acquaint them. So I'm not sure I get it, but
it goes beyond that. It's not necessarily about what we think and what we want to have done. It has to do with the nature of speaking with the people of Bowen Island and being able to hear them. And that was really a strong point that Daniel emphasized when I was speaking with him before speaking with Emma. There's a way to do public engagement and community consultation in Bowen that works and a way that doesn't work. And we've seen recent examples of both.
I think that we've already arrived at all the projects that we're going to do on Bowen. I can't see too many hidden ones out there that we haven't discovered that could screw the time up more. Do you see any more, or do you think that there's other historicals out there that we should be looking at?
I don't know. And that, I think, is part of what community engagement is about. There may be things that we're not considering. And there's also raising, part of this exercise is a raising of awareness around heritage. And there are many, many new people on this island who don't know very much about the place they live.
it's also about public buy-in as well, because if you're going to council with registers and plans and stuff like that, you need to be able to say the public is behind you and own it, right?
Yeah. And especially if there are policy changes, if there are incentive programs, if there are changes to land use bylaw, we want to make sure we've got a foundation for making those kinds of changes.
I think in response to what you're saying, Brandy, I think in some ways we've been focused on looking at places to put on a heritage register, partly thinking about protecting those places. But as I understand it, a heritage consultation is much broader than that, and so it would include places like the Rogers Land, maybe the explosives, the explosives area.
Tunstall Bay.
Areas where people feel that there's heritage that might never be appropriate to put on a register because they're not discrete, but they contain island heritage. So that's how I understand it. It's a big kind of throw it out there. What does the public have to say about the heritage that they know, where they live or where they spend time? And then from that place of appreciation, then you draw out, well, is there anything that we would like to think about protecting or remembering, making sure that we don't forget the value of particular places, which is what has happened so far. Is lots of people have done lots of work on remembering things, but you know, people move away, people pass away, and many of those things are now being forgotten, and we're losing the connection to the primary sources that told us what exactly those were. So I think that's what the heritage consultation is.
The other thing is when you identify sites, not everything's going to make it on the register because maybe I think it's going to be an important piece of you know, ensuring that the owner, especially for its private sites, are wanting to be included on the register and understand the benefits as well as the downsides. And I'm pretty sure that staff in Vancouver have a list of sites eligible for being on a register. So you're not on the register, but you're on a site. So if somebody, an owner comes to you and says, you know, I'd like to get, you know, grant funding to help me preserve my site, and we'll go, well, you're not on the register, but if you get added to the register, you can go on. So that might be something, if we, at least if we know what's out there, it can be on this potential
So I think
register
that's
list, right?
Inventory, isn't it? Like an
Yeah, it's more like an
is much
inventory.
broader
It's a
than
database.
than a register. Like an inventory is just absolutely everything.
The database will be larger than the actual register at first,
Yeah.
but it's a living document that can go,
Yeah.
right?
And then a register contains discrete items that are describable.
And have status.
And
Also has to do with community pride.
yeah.
And I mean,
Mhm.
even if we have a heritage registry that starts with nothing but the old general store, you know, it's a step in the direction of recognizing.
I have two questions.
Sure.
Or one question and one comment, I guess. My question is, you have suggested in your resolution $7,000, which I notice is not the same as $12,000.
Right.
And I was wondering about that. Is that just what you think?
Or does that include in kind
That's subtracting staff time.
staff can?
Okay.
That's the in kind, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Memory people.
So it's the cash contribution, and it's the bulk of the cash contribution. When you take the staff time out,
Okay.
it drops quite significantly. So it would give us flexibility to do
Yeah.
more of the
Yeah.
consulting work
Right.
upfront,
Right.
which is in keeping with the rhythm of the work.
Yeah. And then I guess my comment is that I would feel, I agree with Emma about, I think she does a great job with consultations, community consultations. I still would feel more comfortable if there was some kind of initial conference with an experienced heritage consultant such as Don, just to think about the pitfalls, potential pitfalls, and avoiding them, because I think they're probably fairly predictable, or that's the impression I got
Yes.
when I went to the Heritage Conference last year.
And give us a roadmap,
Right.
you know?
Yeah,
So if you look at just look at option A, 1.1,
yeah,
there's $2,500
Yeah.
allocated for a consultant as
yeah,
a kickoff
yeah.
to get that kind of
Yeah.
advice.
When I developed the two options, I'd actually talked with Don Luxton.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
so,
you did?
yeah,
Wow.
so this is what he recommended. He said if you were to do engagement in-house, then at a minimum you should have a heritage consultant come in at this stage in the stage.
Cool.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so I did some research.
Yeah. I'm impressed.
So can I
Okay,
make the
that gives me a
recommendation?
comfort level.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so the Heritage Commission recommended council that the work plan and budget, option A, rather than 1.
I have that.
Okay, dated May 1, 2019, be approved to enable progress on Island Plan 2019, strategic priority B3.2, engage the community in the development of a heritage strategic plan with $7,000 allocated from 2019 strategic priorities fund for consultant fees and public engagement costs. And with that, can I have a seconder? Any further discussion? Seeing none, I call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Passed unanimously.
Yay.
Yay, great, thank you.
Break out the champagne.
Well, wait, you know, wait till it's over.
Yeah.
Okay, Lieben?
I just thought there was quite a bit of discussion about Lieben during the action item section.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
we're
know if we
done.
need to do any more. No. Okay, subcommittee reports.
I don't think any of
No, I think we just defer those.
So,
Updates.
all right.
Sorry.
Do you want to keep those subcommittees then, or are they with your membership, or they?
I think that they may have served their purpose.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think, the rest of you?
We're going to continue doing those types of work, but I think everything now is going to shift with the work plan, hopefully.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the legislation and incentives, we've got that material. The inventory, it delivered a draft registry. Community engagement kind of wobbled around a little bit because we didn't have the funding from council. It may not make sense to have them as standing items in the agenda.
So if anybody then has met as a subcommittee, done that work, let the chairs know and get it to my attention. and we
but
can
I don't know
put it in.
if they're populated anymore.
Okay. Someone, but not firmly.
Yeah.
And we've dealt with the inventory research under the action items.
Yeah.
Can I suggest you table it and see what happens with the work plan and see whether or not work needs to be divided up in those
Okay, so just
categories?
defer it.
Madam Chair, I have one item actually that I would like to add to the agenda. I was thinking of it, and it relates to the old general store building, the library building. A number of years ago, when we were, I think we were doing a walkabout and we were looking at the sites on the potential register.
Yeah.
We looked at the condition of the library, and we
Yes.
noticed some rotting
Mm-hmm.
beams that are projecting out. They're still rotting, and that should be on council's maintenance schedule or attention, because those are going to continue to rot, and it's just going to get worse.
Yeah, municipal staff are well aware of it,
Oh,
and
there.
it's being dealt with.
It
Yeah.
is.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Done.
Done?
No, there was worry expressed and noted.
Okay.
Okay, on to updates from the individual organizations. What's new with Bowen Heritage? Anybody?
The new board has,
hold on a
that I am
second.
not a member of, and I'm really trying
So
to
I've got-
distance myself, but
Sorry, Steph. what-
I just, for my records, then I have, is it Peter and Melissa then are Bowen Heritage?
No. Oh, yeah, clearly.
Yeah, but I'm not on the board, so I don't
Yeah,
attend
I don't know.
board
Okay.
meetings, so I'm really not up to
You're just
what's
somebody
happening.
chosen by.
Chosen by, yeah, so I really can't update.
So the new board has decided that they want to continue with community events.
Great.
And I believe they've just been given a grant from the foundation to figure out, supplement or do something in terms of community events. I'm not privy to what the grant was about. And they have had the Apple Blossom Festival, which was last weekend, I believe. And they have not got anybody that's going to supervise the summer students, so they are not going to be open in terms of regular hours for the museum, which is potentially problematic in terms of the use of the building, but which they have had discussions with Metro, and I'm not privy to what has happened with those discussions, but I had thought that this time last year, everybody wanted to resign, so I thought we were folding, and I tried to have discussions with the archives in terms of some sort of transition. But the last minutes that you had was that the AGM was 2 days after your last meeting in October, and there was a board elected, and they have been puddling along, and they're not packing up anything, so.
Who's on the new board?
Sarah Haxby and Vicki Michelle Freckleton and Helen Walwork and Pernilla and Hans Beam and Davies.
Last one, Dave.
There's a Davies relative in there. I can't remember his first name.
Okay, great.
And just to add, at the AGM, I did offer any services on the advocacy front or the technical front as they're dealing with Metro and their issues. So wearing my Bowen Heritage hat, because I think Bowen Heritage will still be also useful beyond just having meetings, but just providing input to Metro as the site is developed out over the next couple of years. So so I'll probably be involved if asked, as needed.
Thank you. My understanding from the Metro Parks perspective, and I don't know very much about what's going on there, but my understanding is that some sort of operating agreement will be entered into with Bowen Heritage regarding the place and the operation of the museum, and that's all I know. Museum and Archives, what's up?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up, it might be related to the Heritage Commission, is that this last Sunday we had the Yamada family come over, the remaining relatives of the Yamada family come over and visited. And I don't know if everybody knows the Japanese heritage on the island.
Who are the Yamadas?
Well, it's a family. They were well, geez, I don't know all the history. I'm going from my memory here, but basically, it's they did one of the master gardeners, first master gardeners on Bowen Island was a Yamada. They did a lot of work on the hotel grounds, construction. Used to be a Japanese bridge that used to go over. They were good friends. They lived on the Malkin's cottage property, which is the current home of David Hawking and Heather Pretty. So they came over, visited with us. We did an oral history with Kathy and that, and then they went directly over to their place, had a meeting over there. But here's the thing that came out of that as well is, and Sam Yamada is 90 years old. He was the son, the little boy that lived here before they got sent to the internment camps. So there's quite a story behind there. But anyways, one of the things that came out of that meeting is that there was a promise from the developer at the time for King Edward Bay there'd be a plaque to acknowledge their contribution to the island. I happen to know Allard, who's one of the developers of that, so I put a call out to him and find out if something can be done. And so I'm just saying, well, the Heritage Commission, maybe we can get involved in that. You know, I don't know if it's, you know, how much is private property, maybe something on the beach or whatever, because their original house is gone, but we still know where the site was, and it is private property, but maybe there's something within King Edward Bay that we could acknowledge the contribution of their family.
Well, this goes to that research point that we were making earlier on as well. There's stuff we still don't know or we haven't pulled all together yet.
Yeah.
Case in point.
Did they, have you got any photos or anything of their property?
Well, we have lots of photographs of their family and the house and everything else. I mean, and them attending school as back in the one-room school we used to have. But there's a lot of photographs of their family and lots of documentation about them. But it's I just thought that would be nice if we could do something for them. I mean, something was promised to them apparently.
Yeah.
So I got to follow that
How
up.
do you?
What's this?
Staff has brought in some of the family pictures.
So how do you know about the Yamada family?
I don't, I just Googled it.
You just
Google it. Thank you, Mr.
I haven't
Google.
seen the building, there's another, oh, is this them? No.
No, this is just that group.
So I guess the point is this again, it's part of our ethnic heritage in this
Yeah.
island, and
That's
it's
never big.
And they played a major role.
So that picture of the kids on the steps, there's a lot of the, and if he leaves the island at the age of 9, he's probably in that photo.
Yeah, we saw, yeah, I'll tell you exactly. You know who Sam Yamada is? It's him. He's 90 years old. I just met him on Sunday.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
And he's 90 years old. He's still alive and kicking and full of...
He went to an interior?
Yeah, the whole family did. They got moved into the interior. It was New Denver where they ended up, which you can imagine New Denver today is like 50 people, never mind what it would have been like back then. It was very cold. He was telling stories about they quickly built these cottages that they were like row houses that they used to live in. And they're so quickly put up, they were using a lot of raw lumber, but they dried, there'd be gaps. Now, can you imagine in the interior how cold it would get? And they would stuff newspapers in between the cracks to keep the place warm. I mean, it was just...
So all this was it audio recorded or was it?
It's audio recorded.
Audio recorded.
Yeah. This on Sunday.
I would love to do a project on the Japanese heritage on Bowen Island. I mean, we have some, there's the bridge and the tea room also looks to me like it had some Japanese influence, and it was built by this Japanese group. And I believe were there also Japanese people at the explosives factory too? That were Japanese. So I think that would be neat to do that, and the internment history too. I don't know how many people were still living there. How many Japanese Canadians were still living on Bowen at that point? And I imagine there were quite a few families.
Well, they were all moved on. It was mostly, the internment camps were really meant for the coastal Japanese.
Yeah.
And that's another thing he was telling me about, and I don't want to get off because I had a good meeting, but there was a real difference between the interior Japanese versus the coastal Japanese, because the interior Japanese were well integrated within the communities there, and they weren't considered a threat. So when the coastal Japanese moved into the interior, there was friction between the two sanctuaries because they felt that they were newcomers, they're going to make it bad for them, and there's all kinds of stories that go there. But anyways, it's just something that I think we need to address here, and that's something we could take on. So
Could we maybe just make it an action item for you to report back on your conversation with Allard?
with Allard, yes.
And then see where it goes.
Okay,
from
yeah,
there.
put that there.
Okay, great, interesting. Bowen Island Arts Council, is there anything you'd like to share?
No, I'm not in a position to do that. I haven't been to a meeting for quite some time as I've been away.
Okay, so next meeting. All right, so now we're going to go back to, and I'm conscious of the time, there's 7 o'clock meeting, so we need to get through this. Elections of chair, vice chair, and establishing our meeting schedule. So with the election of the chair, ideally, we made a decision that will be done soon, Dave. We made a decision as a council that it would be preferable for a non-council member to chair our committees. So given that comment, is there anyone who is interested in serving as chair in the coming year? Dead silence, okay.
Rob did something.
No, I'm just pointing out that, it's...
Oh.
So Melissa and I have served as co-chair for the last year. Melissa, would you be prepared to serve as co-chair?
Yeah.
I would be prepared to serve as co-chair. It's just a matter of council wanting to make sure that there was another voice at the helm. So given the transition, I would be asking you to chair the meetings going forward, if you were elected. So Melissa and I co-chairs.
Sure.
Year,
Sounds good.
unless there's anyone else who's keen.
I will move it.
You will move it. Could I have a seconder? And any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, we're on the hook. All right, and our meeting schedule. So as you saw from that summary of meeting dates, we have met a lot, comparatively, relatively infrequently. With this gap since our last meeting in October, what was important to establish was that going forward, that the current council was interested in having the Heritage Commission continue, and they are. Well, I'll get there, but they are. So I guess the question is, does this meeting time work for people?
Not 5 PM, I prefer we go back, strongly prefer we go back to 7 PM.
Yeah, I found it hard as well. You saw me arrive late. So shall I have Steph maybe do a doodle poll?
Sure, it's more effective if I just get a general sense, for less than a bunch of numbers at everybody. So the previous iteration of this group was Thursdays were good, so I think we did 3 or 4 Thursdays in the year.
Yeah.
Are Thursdays generally good for this group still? Yeah,
But
So,
later, this
at
5 o'clock
7?
isn't
or
gonna
is it
work.
7?
Yeah, at little 7:30 even, that would be nice.
It's in the middle of dinner hour too.
Yeah.
Not the third Thursday.
Okay, that's really helpful.
Can we make it 7:30? Is that too late for people?
I get,
I'd be happy with
Stick at
7:30.
7.
it gets a bit late for Steph, and
Okay.
she's often here early
Oh,
in the
right,
day.
right, right. Okay.
Also getting back off island. from-
Yeah. So 7 o'clock, third Thursdays, did you say?
No.
Not the third
Not the
Thursdays.
I can't do the 4th Thursday.
Okay, first or second?
We drink on the 1st Thursday.
Second Thursday.
Second Thursday.
Okay.
Second Thursdays?
Okay, let me just take a quick look at the calendar room. We have Area Advisory Committee. Did you say the second Thursday?
Yeah.
So we're good for June.
So let's do the June.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll have news,
Yeah,
right? And then we can start
Yeah.
moving forward.
and then start every couple of months.
So we'll go June.
What day is that? The second Thursday?
13th.
13th? Okay, I'll just be back. Good.
Thursday, June 13th. I'm gonna do this so quickly.
Yeah.
July, August, September. So we're good for September.
Let me just check.
You're gonna be at UBC.
That's what I'm thinking.
And
On the
would-
12th.
Isn't it 2 months? Because that would be June, that would be August, which is not good.
We shouldn't do August.
So September,
September 12th, we're not at UBCM. It's
Thursday, September 12th. I will send this out. I'm just penciling it down. And then, I don't remember, it's pre-Christmas.
Not December, please.
and November the 14th. That work?
Sure.
Yep.
So
Thursday, November 14th. And then we'll pop on over to February.
that'll be next year. We can start establishing
Yeah, do it.
for next
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
So June 13th, September 12th, November 14th?
Are you sending out calendar invites? Please don't.
No.
She is. Stop it. It confuses everything. Sorry, what?
June 13th,
Mhm.
September 12th, November 14th?
Mm-hmm.
That's not okay?
Yes.
Okay.
You guys okay with that?
Yeah. As needed, if we don't have
Yeah,
stuff, we can always
yeah.
cancel.
But that gives us that initial chunk of time to like wrap up phase 1 and acknowledges the August break and bring.
I'll send you an invite.
Okay, so we have a couple of info items, the island plan. There's a little excerpt that says council back in February said Melissa and I could go to the Heritage BC conference, and then there's a link to the conference information. So if you guys have time, maybe take a look at that link, and if there's anything in particular that strikes you as we really should be paying attention to it, just shoot us an email, and we'll do so. Yeah, Judy?
Can we add either updates or information items to get an update from Metro in terms of whatever
Yeah.
their
Sure.
budget and plans are?
Yeah. Just quickly, they are working, their contractor is working on the detailed design. The detailed design comes back to Metro Parks in the 3rd quarter of the year, so somewhere between October and December, and the construction phase is slated for the coming year.
They're supposed to have done consultation. They said, when I spoke to Sylvia, she said, we're going to get consultants, and then we're going to do a public consultation, and then we're going to design.
That's a period of change. But yeah, natural.
Can we still ask Sylvia whether they still plan to do consultation?
If you look in the island plan, in addition to establishing the Heritage Strategic Plan, was ensuring that the Bowen Island community has an opportunity to participate in the Davies Orchard.
I saw that.
Yeah, so that will be one of the points that I bring up in a progress meeting. Say, this is what we said, what has happened, what's the next step?
Because if they want it to really work, like with everything on island, if you really want something to take off, you have to ask islanders. Otherwise,
I hear you.
Otherwise, it's a lead balloon.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or women, or choose your metaphor.
So we will add that to the agenda as a standing item, and motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we got to clear quickly.
Sooner the better, because the one is available.
Okay, no, that's good.
You
Okay.
can surely sprint
You-
home now.
I'm just curious, that's all.
Sprint home now for the next meeting.
There's one here and one here, and I'll rent it here, going down off the dock. Or walk along here, and the offices, from here,
Yeah.
and go into,
Yeah.
this one is under construction still. We're just
Okay.
doing cabinets and things like that. So if I'm not there, just walk over and tell them you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the one near the ferry,
Share.
that's the one closest to the ramp?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's people living in here and here and
And
here.
this is your office up here, the floating office?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, no one will be going in there to these.
And the timing is good.
Cool, thanks very much.
And upstairs, well, yeah, you can go upstairs. What it is a little living area downstairs. This unit has no bathroom upstairs, but allow.
It's okay, they're right there. I'm just gonna have to stop the YouTube streaming and restart. Thank you, I think it'll be fine. You wanna put that near you?
This unit has upstairs bathroom.
Hi. Pardon?
The problem with this one, it got too big. And I say flex, so if there's snow, we have to get a shovel. Because it's on the water, it would be.
Yeah,
Where
build
this
too much weight up there,
one
yeah.
is shaped like this, so that there's no better snow than and you'll see
So that'll be
it.
done at the conference. Thank you very much. Oh, wow.
So you good for staff now for the summer?
No, we're still looking.
David, what's up here? Looks like stuff.
Sorry, I needed to do a video test for